Cal O'Neill 151 695 96. This is a short video on simulating a student's mind. So I feel, talking about myself and also as a teacher when I was on TV, certain things did work for me, and other things didn't work. But I felt that, like the first one, that using everyday examples, I felt this really did actually emphasize in real life. And I suppose when you're at surface geometry, the roofs and stuff like that, DCG can be one that it's taken over by just lines, whereas this is actually kind of real world kind of basic stuff, real world kind of advanced stuff. I feel that it does motivate students. It motivated my students when I had them in there, that I could relate back to something they already know. Moving on then to motivate an enthusiastic teacher. As a student, I felt this was a big thing for me, as like you need to show a passion for your subject, and I feel like when you show a passion for your subject, it actually does stimulate the students to begin to work for you and work with you. Whereas when you're not in a good form, you're not active in the classroom, it can be a very negative kind of environment for learning. So I feel that having a motivated and enthusiastic teacher is a key thing for having the student's mind and having the interest of the students. Peer assessment, I believe it's actually an enjoyable kind of task. When you have the students on your side, it works very, very well. The students correct one another, but also they actually learn from one another. And when they have to give their feedback, as the starter, it's kind of a joke and a laugh, but they begin to actually give each other real kind of good feedback, which I feel is very beneficial for students. Is they can always be listening just to me, and sometimes they don't listen because it's just my voice that they're listening to over and over again. So I feel just mixing it up and getting different feedback is a key to peer assessment and it being effective in the classroom. And the use of computer programs, down here, I feel like it is very, very beneficial. The likes of SolidWorks, that they can actually look at the project as well as making the project. It can be very handy, like for them to actually just see it on a computer screen and rotate it whatever angle they want. Also, it can be a very enjoyable kind of task, as the students get to make whatever shape they want and then be able to develop it and do the motion studies on it, that they can actually take it apart, explode views, different things, and it just makes a better understanding in the classroom and kind of improves the learning environment of the classroom. I have planned classes here. On TV, it was something that I didn't do at the start, but when I actually did do it, it made the class flow a lot easier. That the first thing you do, you put up your aims and objectives on the board, and I suppose it sets the tone for the class, but the students also know where the class is going. So if you have something enjoyable planned, they can see that once they get one topic done, they can move on to the next one, and I feel it's very effective because it gives a kind of flow to the classroom. Simple, effective classes. This is just a simple sheet at the very start of the class. Like we do in lectures, that it's not looking at your neatness and your tidiness. Yes, there will be questions in the lesson, if it's a double lesson, about it, about getting neatness and how effective your drawing actually is. But for this to start, like this just shows pure principles of your class. So I would never do this at the beginning of every class or even the end, just to show that freehand sketching, that they actually have taken on board what I've said and they can use it in different tasks. Again, it's time efficient. It's a short task. Like we did, it's only 15 minutes long, and I can tell a lot more than if they'd done one for 40 minutes, 50 minutes of a long question and not have just rote learned and not really understood the principles. Peer help, again, can be linked back to peer assessment. Again, they can relate to one another. They're learning from each other as well as they're taking feedback and different things on board. I feel it's very effective though, because sometimes kids are actually afraid to put their hands up to the teacher and say, I'm stuck, and if it happens a few times, they begin then just not to put their hands up because it's drawing attention to everyone and slowing everyone down. Whereas I feel if you put the group in pairs, maybe just a stronger student, a kind of weaker student, that it actually does work. And even for my own self, from being in the college, that I don't have the background in DCG and stuff, so I find it really, really helpful just to ask just another colleague, another friend, how to do a question, and they throw it up a lot easier than having to go the long way around, or even just disrupting the timetable of maybe a lecturer or a TA. So I feel it's really, really effective that they can just ask each other and they'll benefit from one another, as they can relate to one another a lot easier. A guest speaker is something that, as a student, I felt was really, really effective. Like it really helped my kind of, when you get someone in that knows what they're talking about, and it's not just the teacher that's talking at all times, it does stimulate the student's mind. They kind of begin to sit up in their chair and look and ask real genuine questions about how their understanding. It gives a better understanding as you're talking to a professional in their area. So I feel it just changes as well, the kind of the same faces, different things, that it brings a new thing to the classroom and motivates students big time as well. The use of new technologies and videos. students are like myself. We're all using new technology. New technology is constantly being introduced. So I feel that if you stick to the board and just draw manually, you lose a lot of students. Like it's only a one style of learning. Whereas when you're using new technology and you're using different styles, like such as videos, or you're using just the visual, the difference is that every student has a different way of learning, and when you're using these different styles, you're surely going to grab one of the learning styles that they have. And the more you can bring in, the more new technology is what students are used to. So the more you can bring in, the more you're going to get their attention, the more you're going to get their learning, and the more they're going to pay attention to you. The working models, again, like John Dewey always said, that working by doing or learn by doing. I feel by working models are physically engaged um, in the actual model. So that means that they're without even subconsciously, they're actually learning through moving the model around. Like I have here, that's roof geometry we're doing here, and if you move the angles of the roof and different things like that they'll actually understand. And I feel it is really effective for me. I felt it was very, as a student, if I saw a practical thing that you could actually use it, it makes a big difference. And lastly, creating talk working models. This is simply made out of like a toilet roll, empty toilet rolls, and again, it's learning by doing. They're physically engaged, and they get to create their own kind of way. Simple ways that they could come up with their own ductwork and pipework, and then they have to develop these. So if they're joining them of equal diameter, that they're developing these surfaces out then completely, and that's the question done. Instead of me just putting up a question on the board and everyone doing the same one, and people are wrong, people are right. Whereas this one, everyone is individually, and at the end of a week, maybe they could submit then what they've done so far. And I feel that is really effective because students are, well, they're firstly they're creating to their own ability, so they're not getting, so you can actually judge. They're not, it's not too advanced for them, but it's just perfectly, and it kind of shows where they are in the classroom. So I feel this is really effective for the student's mind, is it not singling out anyone for being wrong, and they all have their own way of doing it. So that's why I believe the different factors I've included here do stimulate students' minds, both from myself as a teacher on TP and also as a student in the classroom.